this was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of God. So what does rainbows and many colors represent in the Bible?
A promise. A promise.
A promise. But in Ezekiel it says, the glory of God, the likeness of the glory of God. When you say the sanctuary, and you go into the sanctuary, the priests, they built, God has given the plan of the sanctuary so amazing. So, because it says the sanctuary was the shadows above. So when you go into the sanctuary, in the holiest of holies, the way how they had the curtains and all that, it resembles a rainbow. Let's keep that in mind. Rainbow, many colors, and clouds. And this was just the introduction. But we are about to be done. Now we are going to get into the sermon. A rainbow. Joseph, the story of Joseph in Genesis 37. We'll read it like a story. It says, now Jacob dwelt in the land where his father has stranger in the land of Canaan. This is the history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock. What's the flock in the Bible? His children. With his brothers. And the lad was with the sons of Bela, the sons of Zephah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father. What does the Ten Commandments say? Honor your father and your mother. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a tunic of many colors. The father, Jacob, Israel, loved Joseph so much. Because who did Jacob really love? Rachel. Jacob really loved Rachel. And because he finally had a son through the woman he really loved, Jacob gave a tunic of many colors to Joseph. Of many colors representing the glory of God. And it says here, and also, but when his brothers saw, they loved him more than his brothers. They hated him and could not speak peacefully to him. How many sons did Jacob have? 12. 12 representing the church in the Bible. So when Joseph received the tunic of many colors, his father, or you can say God, gave him glory. And all his brothers hated that he had that glory. But it says here that Joseph was 17 years old. We gotta remember that, 17. That's like almost my sister's age, and she's 16. 17. Joseph was 17 when he received the glory of God, the tunic of colors. And it says here, now Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and that hated him even more. So he said to them, please hear this dream which I have dreamed. Did his dreams become true later on in his life? So if he dreamt what he had, prophecy. He was like one of the first prophets mentioned. Or was one of the prophets in Genesis. Joseph was 17. He received a tunic of many colors. Joseph kept the commandments of God in his heart. And you can say he had the spirit of prophecy. Resemblance, 1844. Joseph, tunic of many colors, commandments, spirit of prophecy. But then it says that his brothers hated him. And when Joseph went to check on his brothers, saw his brothers. The father sent Joseph to check on his brothers. Resemblance. And what were the brothers doing? They were not doing his work. They were not doing his work. Their work. Feeding the flock. Taking care of the flock. Right? They hated him. They ripped his tunic from him. They ripped the glory from him. Right? They ripped the glory from him. And they shoved him into a pit. Just like when we go present the Sabbath truth to people, they shove us into a pit. Right? And when he got shoved into the pit, he got sold to the Ishmaelites, which he was sold into Egypt. Egypt, again. Later on, Pharaoh had 2 dreams. Those 2 dreams were, he saw 7 cows, or skinny cows, ate the fat cows, and 7 ears of corn, like devouring the other 7 healthy ears of corn, right? And Joseph went up to him and said, he prophesied in Egypt, and he said, there will be great time of abundance. Great time of abundance. We are in a great time of abundance. But there will be a time where it's going to be scarce. Where there's going to be scarcity. So what we need to do is we need to start gathering bread for all these years to come. We need to start gathering bread. Not hand sanitizer or toilet paper. Get it? Many people are worried and they gather all this stuff. But God has called us to start gathering bread. Gather so much bread or so much grain, because grain you make into bread. And what happened? He became the governor. And his brothers that were hungry, that were eating the father's bread before they sold him, came to Egypt, a place where they didn't thought it would go. They went to Egypt in search of bread. So if you ever preached the truth to someone and they rejected you, do not condemn them. Because there will be a time where they'll come back to you in search of bread. In search of bread. His 12 brothers, the 12 unite. Because then Jesus says, if your enemy is hungry, feed them. Right? Joseph was storing bread for his brothers that his father also loved. That his father also loved. And it says that Joseph received his family and he had a teardrop in his eye. Because they were all united. Now let me this other parallel. Joseph was Rachel's son. But Jacob had 3 other women. He had brothers from another mothers. Revelation, you will have the church and you will have the whore of Babylon. Brothers, churches from another mother. They will come to Joseph in search of bread. But who is the false prophet? We read in Acts chapter 2, verse 17, and it shall come to pass in the last day, says God, that I will pour out my spirit of truth on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your young men shall see visions. Your old men shall dream dreams. It says your sons and your daughters and your young men will prophesy. How old was Joseph? He was 17 when he received his tunic. Many colors representing the glory of God. If Lucifer has a counterfeit, which is the beast, and he will come as a counterfeit of Christ, then he will have a counterfeit of prophets. If you look in the Bible, God has used many young people to do the hard work, such as Joseph when he was 17. And he received a tunic of many colors. In today's society, my generation, Katie's generation, and maybe future generations are a major influence into this country, into the world. It's the younger generation trying to make an influence into this world, while they are waving a flag of many colors, thinking they have all the glory. And I was surprised yesterday when I read this, and then flag of many colors. But it's not just a group of people, because that group of people are parts of a major group of people of my generation, trying to influence the people around. Because they think they have the glory of God with them. Well, they think they have glory, but it is the abomination of desolation. Abomination in the Bible means you putting yourself in the place of God. So we have the beast, we have the dragon, and my generation is the false prophets. My generation of young people, I just turned 22. I thought I would be doing something else at this life. I thought I was going to have my physical therapy license and everything. But my generation is the false prophets. And what does this have to do with COVID-19? May 14th was going to be a meeting that was going to happen in the papacy for all those who influence religious leaders, political leaders, and major influence people. Right? Did you know, I was reading this yesterday, did you know yesterday was the Pope's 7th anniversary as a Pope? Did you know that the Pope at young lost a lung, or like a big part of his lung, basically lives off one lung? Did you know Italy completely closed its doors until April, but this probably will extend? They closed the doors. What did God do to his people in the 10 plagues? At the 10th plague, people suffered God's judgment, but it was a blessing for his people because they were released. And what did they say earlier here? People are experiencing disease because they are eating what they shouldn't be eating. So they're experiencing God's judgment. But this is a blessing for his people. And this is why I started with my sermon saying, I am so annoyed in the past couple of weeks. And now I understand why. Because, did you know it affects very elderly people with respiratory problems? Are the ones that are in danger of the virus? And who did I just mention with that? Now, I'm not saying I hope, because he is human just like you and me. But whatever God has plans, it says in the Bible, do not lean on your own understanding, but the Spirit of truth will show you things to come. So all these people that are worrying about toilet paper, water bottles, hand sanitizers, medicine, etc., 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 I'm honestly really annoyed, because it is my generation, who influenced all this chaos. My generation influenced all this chaos that's happening. Right? My generation, the false prophets. But God has sent judgment right now. But it is a blessing for us because he is giving us more time. He is giving us more time to store bread before the midnight hour. More time to store bread. Now, I'm not saying you do your daily devotional Bible studies, but we as SDAs, we need to hit that overtime and actually begin to store up bread. And stop worrying about storing up the materialistic things. Because God is giving more time for his people. Because what happens when the false prophet and the beast get together? The dragon comes in as well. What is God really making it avoid? That the false prophets and the beast come together. Because he is giving us more time. He is giving us more time with this going on. So if you've been questioning why is this been going on? Well, I feel that God is telling me to tell y'all today because he is giving us more time to store up bread for our brothers that are out there that reject the bread, because he just doesn't love us, but he sent his son to this world because he loved us all. And that's why I said, I think I find it coincidentally that the Sabbath school lesson of Daniel has been given to us in this beginning of the year, the trimester. God bless and happy Sabbath.